Hey, welcome to the Eric Geiger Leadership Podcast. Today, joining me is Joel Klatt, who, he is a shepherding elder in our church, a good friend, and some of you know, because you are a big college football fan, that you are, what is the title? Is it announcer, commentator, guru,
I always just
Yoda?
Yeah, that's it, guru.
Guru.
That's what we should know. It's just analyst, college football analyst at Fox,
yeah.
at Fox Sports.
But I have been impressed because multiple times I don't get to watch a ton of college football because we have Saturday night services. But sometimes if you're doing an earlier game, like a noon game for us, I'll tune in and watch you commentate. And there's been multiple times where I've heard you say, watch this for this next play, and it happens. I'm like, he's a prophet. He's using the spiritual gift of prophecy in the commentating.
I'm so glad you said that. That's a little bit of like what I'm going to talk about today.
The ability to know the next play?
Not quite, but you'll when we get there, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But thank you. That's kind of always my goal, is to allow the fan to feel like they're smarter. And if they feel like they're smarter, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
That's good.
Yeah.
So me feeling smart when I listen, that's your goal. You're trying to make me feel smarter.
That's exactly right.
Well, I have a funny story because being a shepherding elder, Joel, often when we have like extended prayer and I believe where people confess faith in Jesus and we say, hey, come forward and receive prayer from one of our shepherding elders. There was a guy who came forward and received prayer from you and Sarah, your wife, and he didn't realize till he walked away. He's like, I think Joel Klatt just prayed for me. I think the guy I want the sports guy. I think he just prayed for me.
What's really great about the way Fox has been positioned in college football is that our brand is called Big Noon. So we call the noon Eastern game, which has been incredible for my family because it's 9 a.m. Pacific, and I go to the airport right after the game. And I get home on almost every Saturday night, which means I can be at church with my family on Sunday morning.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I do want to affirm that. And I know we have a lot of business leaders and marketplace leaders in our church whose lives are really busy and demanding. And obviously in the fall season, in your profession, I know you have a demanding schedule. But I've been blown away at how often I see you at church on a Sunday. I mean, it could even be a big game. Like from when this is being recorded, we're recording this early, but when it's being dropped, I mean, a week from now, when you first are listening to this, will be the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really, really big game.
That is, for us, it's the biggest game of the college football year. Regardless of record, there's going to be over 15 million people watch, and if they're both really good, then we'll peak at 23 or 24 million people in the second half. So with that, though, by the way, it's the biggest week of my year, but it's also the most criticism. Because, man, those two fan bases, they're so passionate. So it's the 1 week a year, it's like no internet.
So it's we've joked around about this before, and I didn't think this is a question. It's just off the top of my head. I think that there is some similarities between what we do, and then there's some differences. And I honestly think you as a communicator have a more challenging job than I do, and I'll share why in a moment. But I have thought that what's fascinating about criticism is, if someone gets mad at what I said, I am, guys, it's a verse in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like it's not, and I would think similar for you. You didn't make the interception happen. Right. You just reported on the interception. Why could a fan get mad at Joel Klatt? I mean, you didn't make the interception happen.
Yeah, I think it's the anytime I say something positive about one team, the entire fan base of the other team is upset.
Okay.
And then if I turn around and say something positive about the other team, then the other fan base is upset. So inevitably, like if you were to go and search my mentions after a game, you will see side by side of one guy, from, like let's say Ohio State saying like, this guy loves Michigan so much. He's such a Michigan homer. And then the next tweet is a Michigan fan saying like, this guy loves Ryan Day. He's a Buckeye. And I just chuckle at it because But I often say, and this is where it's different, I think maybe from you, is I actually often think to myself, like if I'm getting equal amounts of vitriol from both sides, I probably did my job really well.
Yeah, that's different for me. I'm not currently going in. I want this half of the room to hate me.
That's right.
And the other half too.
That's right.
Now, here's where I think I'm just blown away. You have like 3 hours of content when you or commentate a game.
Yeah.
That I have like 35 minutes of content when I teach a sermon. 3 hours, and I'm also able to prepare exactly those 32 to 35 minutes. You have to be so prepared that you're responding to moments that you didn't even anticipate were going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, this is so crazy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I was prepping for in regards to this show about, because we're going to talk about credibility,
Right?
And a lot of it comes through preparation. So for instance, in a 3-hour game, I probably prepped really well if 65 to 80% of what I prepped doesn't make air.
Wow.
Because to me, it's like fishing. I'm going to have my whole tackle box ready, but I'm probably only going to reel in 3 or 4 fish.
Yeah.
Right. So I need to let the game take me to the places that the game is going to take me rather than me force myself onto the game.
Yeah.
I actually really get frustrated when I watch a sporting event and I feel like there's an agenda from the announcer rather than just allowing the game to kind of reveal itself.
Yeah.
But what's more difficult is just the speed at which it happens, because in football, as the play is finishing and my partner Gus Johnson is finishing his call, I have to have my comment done, ready in my head, because I'm hitting the talkback button, which goes down to our production truck, and I'm telling our producer and director, this is the replay I want, and I'm going to telestrate on it. So I'll say like Skycam or ball placement or pocket or left tackle or something along those lines.
You're saying that while the other guy's making a comment?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you can't hear me saying this, obviously.
You're saying
that
to the producer.
I'm saying that to the producer in the truck, and then when I lift my hand off of that button, I'm waiting for the play-by-play guy then to end, and then now it's my turn.
Okay.
And then it's like, okay, here we go. And you've got to have it ready to go right then.
Huh.
And then it's got to be quick.
Yeah.
Because the next play is going to happen.
Right. I didn't realize that's how it happened. So you're choosing the replay.
Yeah, so you watch football through the analyst's eyes. So like it or not, you watch football through my brain if I'm calling the game.
Well, I like it because you're trying to make me feel smarter.
I'm trying.
It's so good. All right. Well, I want to back up a little bit and talk about you and your story, and then I want to set up what we talked about this weekend with Nehemiah and credibility, and then talk about the importance of credibility. The reason I wanted to get you on this podcast is because I think credibility as a communicator, the same principles apply to credibility as a leader.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say a little bit about Aristotle's framework in a moment about credibility. But first, let's talk about you and like your story, how you got into the role that you are in the marketplace. Because I know you played college football, and then also a little bit about your faith story. Just give us the synopsis of who Joel is.
Yeah, so they're as is the case for a lot of people, they're intertwined. My faith journey as well as my professional career. So it actually started before college football. I was drafted to play minor league baseball out of high school. And so I decided to sign and played 3 seasons of minor league baseball, and it was a disaster. Personally, spiritually, and competitively. For the first time in my life, I was totally failing as an athlete. As a person, I was heavy into drinking, had no real faith. I had grown up in the church, but didn't understand what a personal relationship was. So I actually left baseball for a life change, not a sports change, and went back to the University of Colorado and decided to walk on the football team. But really, I was just leaving baseball to start a new life.
So did you start as a freshman when you went?
So I was a freshman.
Yeah.
I was a 21-year-old freshman at Colorado. Once I was there, football started to become successful in part because my life was more in order. I started going to a campus ministry there called UCF. Great leader there named Bill Stevens kind of took me under his wing, and we started to meet. And for the first time in my life, I started to understand what a personal relationship with Jesus actually looked like. And then, lo and behold, I won the starting job as a sophomore and was fortunate enough to play 3 seasons of quarterback at Colorado. I was an economics major. My wife and I, Sarah, kind of met and started dating there at Colorado, and we were married before my last year, so we got married fairly young, and then tried to dabble in the NFL. For 1 year, I was with the Saints.
Yeah, come on. Who dat?
That's right. Right after Katrina, actually.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And which was a wild time. Sean Payton had just gotten the job there. Real quick story is Reggie Bush had just gotten drafted. So, and then I'm an undrafted free agent, and we go to rookie minicamp. So we fly on the same flight from Denver. He connects, and we go down there, and he was in first class, and I was like in 32E, you know? And he didn't really know who I was. And so we go down to the baggage carousel, and he thought that I was just one of the like GA type guys from the Saints that was going to help with bags. So he just rolled me his bag.
Reggie Bush said,
Reggie Bush
carry
did.
my bag.
And so I was like, all right. And so I just carried his bag out to the bus. And then he realized that I was actually one of the players and
That's awesome.
apologized. But so that, anyways, like that, I was in camp with the Saints and then the Lions, and then that ended. And went through a bit of a period of struggle because of identity. As you can imagine, like competitiveness in sports and athletics had been really everything to me, you know, baseball, basketball, and football through high school, and then minor league baseball, and then college football. And then it was just over.
Yeah.
So started struggling a little bit more from a faith standpoint. In the meantime, I was starting an investment banking job with my economics degree, and it was with a small REIT in Denver, real estate investment trust, and I was raising speculative sections of speculative real estate deals, the equity sections. And this was right when the housing market tanked in 2006, 7, and 8. So anyways, that job went away. I lost that job. But in the meantime, the regional television, sports television, Fox Sports Rocky Mountain, had called, knew I was in town, and said, hey, our analyst got sick. Would you fill in on a couple of high school football games? And so I said yes, and the executive producer was like, hey, like, you were pretty good at that. You should keep doing it. And so he gave me some more games, and by the time that took hold, I started to really love it. I lost my real estate job, and Sarah got a new job the same day I lost my job.
Wow.
And her new job covered that salary.
Whoa.
Which was a total God moment
Yeah.
in our life. We had prayed about it. And so she said, like, hey, try to make broadcasting work. And so I got this really low rent.
So from that point, how many high school games had you done when
I had
that
probably
conversation?
done, 12
Okay.
to
Yeah.
18.
All right.
And I had
So
done
more than
some
one
studio
season?
works. Yeah.
Couple
Yeah, a
seasons?
couple
Yeah.
seasons worth. And I had done some studio work on some baseball and things like that. And I enjoyed it. And I got a radio gig to do an afternoon drive show on this really low rent budget radio station. And that was the start of my broadcasting. And then from there, I just started getting more and more opportunities, and there were more open doors, and I was open to it, and I was willing to do, weird things like go call an Oklahoma State baseball game. And every time I would just say yes. Quick story about that period is I thought it was important to kind of return to my walk-on roots, which is fight entitlement and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So that low rent radio show, we would have to go and set up remote broadcasts. And they sold this remote broadcast. If anyone's familiar with Denver, there's this street in downtown called Spear, and they sold a radio show at a Taco Bell on Spear, like in the heart of downtown. And you're like, wait, you want us to do a sports talk radio section show from where? So we go there and we're setting up our own show. There's no one around. And I'm like, what are we doing? And my partner, who was more technically savvy, was setting up everything on the table. And he said, hey, I need you to go plug in the phone line, because this is before like the internet was really good. So the only way to be on the air was with a phone line. And he goes, I need you to go plug in the phone line in the office in the back of the kitchen. And I'm like, okay. So I'm rolling out this long 150-foot phone line. And he looks at me and he's like, hey, man, make sure it's taped down so no one kicks it out.
Wow.
Because then we'll be off the air. So
this is not a glamorous beginning.
I was on my hands and knees
Yeah.
on a Taco Bell kitchen floor taping a phone line down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I still think about that moment every time I get to call Ohio State, Michigan. And I'm just thankful, for all of those opportunities.
Man, I love that story, because a lot of people in all kinds of disciplines in life, when they see someone in a pinnacle, like calling a game that you mentioned, Ohio State, Michigan, and they're like, I want to do that, but they aren't willing to do on the hands and knees plugging in the telephone cord.
Trust me, the floor was not clean.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's exactly right. But I'm so thankful for that time.
Yeah.
Because there were so many lessons learned in order to get to that point where I can do what I do now.
I love it. All right, so I'm going to transition us to talk about credibility, because I know it's a huge part of the role of any communicator. And then I'm going to give a little summary of Nehemiah, and then I want to ask you some questions about credibility. So Aristotle, he had this really famous framework for communication that every communicator needs three things: ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos is credibility, pathos is passion, logos is logic. So he would say, if Aristotle was evaluating a sermon of mine, he would say, Eric, you got to be passionate about what you're talking about. Your argument or your main points have to be logical and make sense. But really, if you don't have credibility with the people you're communicating to, those things don't matter. And what I've learned as a pastor is I could quickly ramp up my passion or my logic, but I cannot quickly impact my credibility.
Yeah.
My credibility has to be built over a long season of being a man of my word, a person of integrity, a godly husband, a godly father. So, applying that to you, you can do a ton of work to have logic as you broadcast and passion for the game, but credibility, that is believability, someone who's trustworthy. So that's what I want to spend some time talking about credibility. With Nehemiah, we saw in the passage that we studied today, as Nehemiah is building the wall, and he's got these people all around him from these neighboring nations, Geshem and Sanballat and Tobiah. They have tried to discourage him. They've tried to get the workers to stop working. They've made fun of the workers. They made fun of their tools. And when that didn't work, they decided, here's how we're going to get the wall to not be built. We're going to destroy Nehemiah's credibility. So they actually wisely understood that the way we could stop the work is to just ruin his reputation. And for Nehemiah, it was, we're going to get him to sin. They tried to get Nehemiah to go into the temple, and the command in the Old Testament was the temple was the inner place of the temple was only for the high priest to go in. And Nehemiah, though he was being used by God and was in this important role, he was not the high priest. And so he knew he shouldn't go into that place. And he knew that those people were only trying to, he says in the text, discredit me. So he said, these people are trying to ruin my credibility. And he fought so strongly to be blameless, to be a person of integrity. And his credibility came from character. He feared God. It came from his commitment to the people. So he was really committed to the people of Israel, building on their behalf. Came from chemistry. He loved them. They loved him. Came from capacity. He moved from being a cupbearer in the Persian court of Artaxerxes, and then now this visionary builder. Basically, he grew. He grew in his capabilities. He became a stronger and stronger leader. So because of that, he had a lot of credibility. In fact, we'll see in coming weeks so much credibility that he even is going to call the people to have their hearts changed, not only build a wall, but to become obedient to God's commands. But all that he did rested on him being a believable, credible leader, right? And excuse me, he was credible with the king of Persia before he went to Judea at first. The king of Persia,
Which is really the only reason he got the assignment.
that's right. He wouldn't have, if he had the credibility to even ask this king to, hey, send me to Jerusalem. There's no way he's being sent.
That's right.
If he didn't have credibility. So he had credibility in one role, which transferred into credibility in another role. So I'm curious. You've been around a lot of players and coaches. I know that credibility looks different in every field, but what have you learned about credibility in leadership?
Man, there's so much. Let me start with where we just left off in the story of Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Because I think that is something that, thankfully, in hindsight, I really realize in my story, which is why I told the Taco Bell story, which is I think a lot of people think to themselves, I'm going to do it right or change, or my character's going to be great when I'm at the top.
Yes.
And in reality, you never get the chance unless your foundation of character is laid at the outset.
Yeah.
Which is the only reason Nehemiah even has the chance to do what he's doing.
Yeah. I 100% agree. In fact, I think if you think that your character is going to get better when you have more responsibility, you're really set up for a fall, because the greater responsibility shows the cracks in one's character. If you don't have credibility and strong character in what you perceive as smaller roles, your character is not going to get better in bigger roles. You need to build your character early.
Could not agree more. I think that is a real fallacy. Is almost we get sucked into this laziness of future.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this right when, or so on and so forth. And this is biblical in so many ways. The parable of the talents. When you're faithful with a little, then you'll be given more opportunities. And that's the same in our community and in roles of leadership, regardless of what your field of work is or who you're leading. Because let's face it, if you're leading this, a lot of people have a family. You're leading your family, So that's where I wanted to start. And for me, at least, the way that I was diligent early started paving the way so that when I would ask executive producers, hey, I'd love to do a college football game. Hey, I'd love to be on that package of games, and then they would look at me and they would say, like, well, he's done really well in all these other little roles.
Yeah. So
let's give him a chance at the bigger role. So that's where it starts. Yeah. I think Nehemiah had that foundation.
That completely relates to Nehemiah.
Right.
Because he was faithful in his role as a cupbearer, he had the king's ear.
And a lot of times that just means, like, just do the work.
Yes.
And so that's number one. Then we move into, like, okay, so what does that look like now? And then I'll talk about some of the leaders that I've come across, because there are so many different types of leaders and great ones in college football that I get a chance to talk to and talk with. So the first thing for me, the character, well, first of all, credibility is my currency. My entire job is my credibility, because it's an objective median. This is not a subjective deal. This is, what you think of it is why I have my job.
Yeah.
And
man, that's a huge statement. Credibility is my currency.
It's 100% my currency. If I don't have credibility, I don't have a job. So what does that look like? Well, the listener needs to trust me. Well, what does that look like? Well, I need to be accurate. And I need to work really hard on being accurate. I think a lot of people in the sports business are flippant with their views, but accuracy is paramount. So for me, that means, accuracy in details, accuracy in schematics, accuracy in numbers, all of those things. You can't just make it up.
Yeah.
And so accuracy is a big part of it. And then the other side of it is never, at least for me, go personal. As soon as I make a comment that is personal in nature, I'm going to lose credibility because it seems like a personal attack.
You mean personal on the person that you're speaking about?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Coach, player,
Yeah.
Whomever it is. And so those two things, I could probably talk about others, but those two are really the big pillars, which is my credibility is going to be a function of my accuracy and as well as my ability to speak and be critical without being personal and attacking people personally. That's huge. Now, there are a couple of elements, and that's where I wanted to touch on some of the leaders that I see around college football and players and everything. There's really three things, Eric, that I see in every great leader. First thing I wanted to say is everybody does it different. There is not one way to be a great leader or be successful or any of those things. I don't believe in that. I think God makes us all unique, and He gives us all unique gifts. And so the first thing you have to do is be authentic. Mm-hmm. Every great leader I've ever been around is very authentic. They know themselves. They operate out of that authenticity. And in a lot of ways, whether they have a faith or not, it's almost like they understand the way God made them and the strengths that God gave them. They have clarity of purpose. I think that's one thing that I'm blown away at some of these guys. They're maniacal in their clarity and
about what they're
what their objective is and how they're going to do it.
Is that coaches and players, or are you thinking coaches? Okay, both.
Yes, both. Clarity of expectation, for coaches and even players. And then the last thing is it's born out of that clarity. They are consistent. They are very consistent people, not only in their performance, but just their operation. And so those three things, bring about what I would consider to be a lot of credibility. I see a lot of coaches, and there are guys that I know aren't great. And generally that's because they're either not authentic, they don't have clarity, or they're not consistent. The best ones, I was fortunate enough to sit with Nick Saban a couple of times. That guy, unapologetically himself, laser focus clarity about his process and how he's going to go about it, and as consistent as they come. If you talk to any coach that ever coached with Nick Saban, they will tell you at 6:58 he's going to walk through the door for the 7 a.m. staff meeting.
Really?
Every morning, 6:58. Every day for lunch, chicken salad. Same cup. Just maniacal in his consistency. But within that, people understood how to operate, what the expectations were. And I think that obviously served him very well.
Yeah, so the people knew exactly what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
but I would just say, because of that, that's the credibility is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you don't have those things, if you're not consistent, if you're not authentic, if you're not clear about what your vision is or what your purpose is, you're going to lose credibility very quickly.
Yeah. So Nehemiah, the credibility that we articulate, that we see in him in the study that we're in, we we looked at his character, his competence. He was able to build the wall. No one thought that could be done. His chemistry, he loved the people. His commitment, I love the passage of this week. I'm not coming down from building this wall. It's a great work. And his capacity. So you said credibility is like the biggest currency for you.
Yeah.
I'd love to walk through, and I know that it's 5 of them, so we'll hit them kind of fast.
Yeah.
Like character in your space, in sports broadcasting, how important is character?
I mean, the reason I'm pausing is it's not it's credibility is bigger.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to have strong character. It's not an industry that breeds high
Okay,
character
yeah.
individuals.
So, as a Christian in that space,
Yeah.
Do you stand out?
Yes.
How so?
Generally speaking, I'm one of the only ones not out.
Yeah, you're on a plane coming home to see your fam.
That's right. You know, I don't stay extra nights in hotels. Yeah, this is the only one that I struggled with. I think that there's character within the job, and that's where the
Right.
accuracy and not being personal like that. That's
Saying
where
trustworthy
that is.
things. Yeah.
In the industry, though, it's everyone's traveling every single weekend to all different places all the time, and you know, I think that character stands out, and having a godly character
Yeah.
has opened up doors for me and conversations for me that are incredibly unique. So I'm sober. I've been sober almost 14 years. Actually, when this comes out, it'll be over 14 years. And inevitably, I'll have 3 or 4 different people from around the industry reach out every single year talking to me like, how do you do that?
That's great.
You know, like, tell me, like, what do you do? How do you do that? So character is an
Yeah.
interesting one
Yeah.
in our business.
So you walking with the Lord creates conversations with people who are curious about your life.
Very much so. And then the most fascinating and uplifting thing are those conversations when people start to ask questions or their curiosity is stirred with just seeing how maybe I go about my business. But then the better part is that there's been a real revival on college campuses.
I've been seeing some of the reports. Insane. Beautiful.
And in particular in college football.
Love
These young college football players are on fire for the Lord. There was a revival at Ohio State.
I saw last year like a bunch of the college football players are baptizing university students.
There was a tight end, and I know these guys because I covered them so much last year. His name was G. Scott, and he was a 5th or 6th year senior, an older guy, and came back, had a strong faith, and as he became an older leader in that locker room,
Yeah.
he started winning over hearts to the Lord within the locker room.
I love it.
And so all of a sudden, now all the best players on the best team in the country are all on fire for the Lord.
Yeah.
And so they had a campus event, and they just put out a bunch of those like big,
Yeah.
troughs.
Like horse troughs.
Horse troughs, that's right. We use them in football for ice tubs,
Yeah.
and so they brought all the ice tubs out, and they just started giving their testimony. I'm talking about G. Scott, Travion Henderson, who was the best back that Ohio State had. A guy named Emeka Ibuka, who was a wide receiver who set Ohio State's all-time, receptions mark. These guys that are big guy, JT Tuimoloau, the defensive end, these are all American-style players, and they're all giving their testimony in front of hundreds of their peers.
Love it.
And all these kids come down to be baptized. It was a similar story last year when Michigan won the national championship, and a lot of those players had strong. So those interactions, man, I'm telling you, I get to go in on Fridays and just sit with these kids and just try to encourage them. And I sat there with Emeka Ibuka, and I just told him, like, you are doing it. Well done.
Come on.
Good and faithful servant. That's what jazzes me up.
Man, I love it.
So that's fine. I know that might be a little off topic. But
No, it's perfect. And one of the reasons that I wanted different marketplace leaders like yourself on for this teaching series is Nehemiah was not a prophet or a priest in the Old Testament. He was a governor, at first a cupbearer, like a marketplace leader. And sometimes people can think that their roles out in the world are not as important as, from a spiritual standpoint or a kingdom of God standpoint, as like being a pastor. And that's so not true, because you're constantly around people who have questions about life, and you have a chance to represent him. And I think how you have done it, Joel, I being a man of integrity in front of people and then being able to have conversations because they see your life is different is not like when you're broadcasting, you're dropping things like, oh, he just scored a touchdown. Jesus scored a touchdown for you. Or he dropped a pass. Who never will drop a pass? The Holy Spirit would never,
right. He'll never let you down.
Yeah, he'll never let you down. So you're not doing those things, which sometimes leaders in the marketplace can think, well, that's what, if I'm going to be a Christian in the marketplace, I'd have to do things like that. That's not true at all. What it means is you walk in with integrity in front of people, and then you'll have opportunities to answer questions that people have. And they do have questions.
They do. One of the most uplifting things that I get to do now, so I have a podcast of my own, the Joel Klatt Show, and I do it all year long, but in the fall, it obviously ramps up, and I do 3 episodes a week. Well, a lot of times I'll do once a month a mailbag, and I had a mentor of mine encourage me. He was like, why does it always have to be about football? And I was like, great question. So I just threw it out to my listeners, and I just said, hey, you got a question about being a father, son, like whatever. Let's just have like an open forum mailbag. Cool. Eric, you'd be, maybe you wouldn't be, like you'd be blown away at the questions I got. It was 80% life and 20% football. Yeah. So it actually gave me a chance with my platform to share the good news of Jesus on the podcast. That was, and it brought a lot more like purpose to what I do. But again, I'll go back to, if I was constantly taking shots personally at players or coaches, or if I wasn't accurate, if I didn't broadcast with respect of the game, celebrate the sport, all these things, people wouldn't ask me questions like that.
You wouldn't have the credibility.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, because it all ties together.
All right, so competence.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about how you've developed that. I mean, it started with you just working hard in a high school game as an announcer and then being willing to tape down telephone cords. I mean, you were developing competence before you got into your role, not after you got into your role.
Yeah, I mean, I think about going back, like in minor league baseball, I learned how to fail. Right. I mean, that's a learned trait. You got to learn how to do that. And at Colorado, I was taught the game really well, the schematics of the game.
Yeah.
That's when I first really learned how to deal with pressure. Like what does that actually look like when you're under an immense amount of pressure? You're playing football in front of 80,000 people and nationally. Like, what does that feel like? How do you deal with that? Do you let that define you, or is like your identity in Jesus, right? So like all along the way, I think competency is starting to be forged, right? And then when it comes to like now, I think the competency is the attention to details. I'm a huge believer that people that are really good at what they do, great at what they do, are not great at what they do because they don't have weaknesses. They're great at what they do because they understand their strengths really well, and then they build habits that allow those strengths to flourish.
Cool.
I think teams do that. I think individuals do that. That's not to say that you shouldn't work on areas, but too many times I see people spend way too much time on areas of weakness. And I say that to give you an example. I think early in my career, I spent a lot of time reading articles and building boards and accumulating information that was available to everybody. But I was accumulating that to build my boards so that I had that information in front of me. And there's only so much time in the day. So what I wasn't doing a lot of years ago was watching film. Well, my strength is the schematics of the game.
Okay.
My strength is thinking along with a play caller and like getting in his head.
So you're watching a game unfold through the lens of the guy who's calling the plays.
That's right. What am I thinking? What is he thinking? What's the defense doing? Like I was taught the game really well, and so like that's my strength. And yet early in my career, I'm spending all of my time just all right, I got to get this stat and this
Yeah.
bio nugget and this. And I started thinking to myself, like, my time is being wasted. My
Yeah.
strength is being wasted. My gift is being wasted. And so I started to outsource and brought on someone that was really great at that, which freed me up to really watch the film. So now I became a lot better because I was uniquely aware of my strengths and weaknesses, and then I built habits
That's good.
and systems to try to accentuate my strengths.
So the transferable principle on the competence is like double down on what you're strong, but the weaknesses, you got to get past like a debilitating level of the weakness, right? You got to get at least that up to average, right?
I always hesitate in giving that because it's like, it's not that you, well, I mean, there are weaknesses that if they're too great, I couldn't have this job.
Right.
But once you're at a competent level, you know, how do you go from good to great?
Yeah.
You know, well, I think that really understanding your strengths is important.
I agree 100% with that. And Marcus Buckingham, leadership guy, he was the one who's, first develop your strengths was one of his books. And I 100% agree with it. Sometimes I've seen people overswing to where they don't give any attention to their weaknesses.
Right.
And there is a threshold I think you have to have. It was a book called The Leadership Code by Dave Ulrich. He's like the HR executive of the decade. He actually, when I wrote a leadership book, I emailed him. It was super helpful. He called it a debilitating weakness. Like if you don't get your weaknesses to, you don't have to be awesome in your weaknesses, but you got to get them to a place where they don't crush you.
Yeah.
And
I still have all the accurate information.
Right.
And again, I have a guy, he's unbelievable and he helps me. And so we accumulate all the data. I still have all the data. Yeah. It's not that I don't do that.
But you're focusing on the film and
right.
being the playmaker. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Chemistry.
Yeah.
So I think in your space, the chemistry with the co-host is critical.
Yep.
But is it also with the person who's, you're hitting that button to call up the video?
It's all of them. It's all of them. The most is the people on the air.
Okay.
I think that it's imperative that Gus and I get along. It's imperative that we are announcing the same game.
Okay.
The most important trait during a game that I can have is the ability to listen. That's the most important thing I can do, because if I'm saying one thing and Gus is saying another, and though they are unrelated and incoherent, then it is a tough listen. Huh. And our goal is to make it a really good listen.
Man, there's so many transferable principles there. The importance of listening.
Yes.
Wow.
So we always talk about it as a double dutch. We are in a double dutch, and we constantly will look at each other and say, hey, don't trip the rope. Don't trip the rope. Like, I'm in, you're in.
Wow.
And so for the listener, we want you to feel the rhythm of the game without us getting involved. And the rhythm also is what I would consider to be like the information. If he says one thing and I say something opposite, we just trip the rope.
Got it.
If I'm talking over him, we just trip the rope. And so the chemistry there, it has to be, that's like paramount.
Yeah.
But then also with the crew. So we have like 80 people working a game. It's a massive crew.
That's a big crew.
Yes. It's a huge crew.
I guess it makes sense if that means millions of people are watching.
Yeah, there's tape operators and cameramen, and there's graphics coordinators, and there's all sorts of people all over the place. And it is a little bit of a traveling family. And what I think is important, and I learned this back when I was a player at Colorado, and I think it's accentuated now with some of the great leaders that I'm around as coaches, is that everyone will say, and even Jim Collins says this in the Good to Great book, is like everyone needs to be in the right seat on the bus.
Yep.
Basically, does everyone understand their role? Yes, that's important. I'll take it a step further. I think that everybody needs to think that their role is important. Yeah. So everybody needs to find value in their role. The only people that can do that are the ones that are the leaders, to make someone feel like their role is valued, no matter how small or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, there are some people that fly away from their families. They lay cable all day long, work their guts out.
Yeah.
And then they're sitting at an EVS machine, which is basically a tape machine. And that tape machine maybe has 3 different cameras. And so they're watching 3 screens and they're trying to tape so like it can get a replay in or build a tape package. It's tireless work. They've got to be on it. They might not only get like 1 replay for the whole game.
Oh, wow.
Out of one of their cameras, right? Just because that's the way that it crumbles, if you will.
Yeah.
And yet, like, they need to feel like their work is really important.
That's good.
So I think that making sure when you're in a position of leadership that everyone understands their role, yes, but that they feel like their role is valued. I think that that's really important.
I love it. All right, when it comes to commitment, what's something you do that nobody would realize you have to do in terms of work, in terms of getting ready? Like for this big Michigan-Ohio State game, I mean, we could tell just from listening so far, it's not like you're flying in, hey, guys.
No.
Hey, guys, y'all ready for the game?
Work starts Sunday at 5 p.m.
Okay.
The week before. You know, so I get home on Saturday night, I come to church, I spend the afternoon with my family, and then at 5 p.m., I'm knee-deep already working for next week. And I would say, you know, it's there's easily 40 or 50 hours of work done before I get on the plane on Thursday. And then you have the whole weekend. Then you work all day Friday in meetings with the coaches and players, then our production meeting. And by Friday night, I have to basically lead our production meeting. So I have to tell our whole crew, this is what the game is about. This is what I'm going to be watching. This is how I'm going to watch it. This is how I want us to televise it. So I've got to give them a game plan. Well, I need that built really by Wednesday night. And so, like, my first few days of the week, I'm poring over film, talking with SIDs and other people. So in the fall, you know, I work 7 days a week, which is fine. It's phenomenal, but the work in order to do it well, and that's where I was going to say, like, if 80% of what I prep for doesn't make air, then I'm doing my job well.
Yeah. Wow. Man, I love the honesty of what it takes, you know, because a lot of people look at a role like you're in and think, I want to do that.
Yeah, I could do that.
And I'm like, do you really want to do that? Because this is what it takes.
I think that about your role all the time, man. Like,
well, I mean, I prepare a lot for a sermon, but I'm probably at 22 to 25 hours per sermon. And for a game, but again, it's less like I have less amount of time. You're 3 hours of content.
Well, and not to, but like, think about it though. You've got 2 teams.
Yeah.
You've got, you know, the offense alone on one team has 28 players that you've got to have prepped. Well, then the defense has 28 players.
Yeah.
Then the other offense has 28 players. And then the other defense has 28 players. So you've got to prep all those players, and you've got to prep all the philosophy. Then you've got to watch all the film. So if I go in to do a game, my whole goal is that I will have watched every snap of that team for that season.
Wow, that's big
on film.
Now, here's where else I have it easier and where I think I have it more challenging. Easier, I have the scripture. It just is. It's true. It's complete. It's perfect. You know, I'm not having to watch new film.
Yeah.
You know, I have the same exact scripture. I get to and so that's easier. Here's the harder. I'm going to stand before the Lord and give an account for every word I say.
So can I just...
know what you do matters, but I don't know
if
the Lord's
not in that sense.
I don't know if the Lord's going to say, you know, on 3rd and 8, you said this.
You said that, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
He won't say that.
Exactly. He won't say that.
At all. Just like a little peek behind the curtain. I had been praying, and Sarah, about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we were just feeling like, man, where are we going to make an impact? Where, you know, and no joke, within weeks, we were invited to be shepherding elders here, which was an answer to prayer, and we're thrilled about that. But when we were going through that process, you got up one night and you were like, this room's going to be judged differently. You're now going to be judged like an elder.
Oh, that's right. When I meet all the shepherding
Yes.
the potential shepherding elders.
Yeah, that's right. And I looked at Sarah and I was like, do we still want to do
Yeah.
this?
I try to scare, and I really do. About a third of them like tap out that night.
But it's true.
It is, because it's a verse in the Bible.
It's true.
Yeah, we'll give a greater account. Well, man, thanks for coming on the If I Had More Time
man.
podcast. It's an honor to have you. Just one last question. How has walking with Jesus impacted your leadership as a whole?
In every way, in every single way, which is there's two things that I cling to. One specifically about leadership, which and I kind of stole this from my dad. So my dad was a high school football coach, and he used to do this for his teams, and he would call it the tale of the towel, and he would talk about the Last Supper when Jesus washed everyone's feet, and so he would go through John 13, and in John 13 verses 14 and 15 it says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you all also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." And that is really like my North Star as a leader, is that like, am I on my knees washing the feet of those 60 people on the crew?
That's beautiful, man.
And that doesn't mean that I do it perfect. I don't think any of us do it perfect, right? It's a tough example to follow, but that's the example that we are to follow, and the love that he showed and the humility that he showed during that time, washing the disciples' feet. And then the other side about that is like, well, how do I do that well? The only way I can do that well is if I'm connected to the vine, and that's
Amen.
the other principle. And so then, it goes in John 15, then a couple more chapters, remain in me as I remain in you. And so the only way that I can do my job well, that I can be a good father, any of that, the only way that I don't get skewed by the criticism online, the only way that anything ever works and I don't start going off on tangents is if I'm remaining in the vine.
Yeah.
So that he's remaining in me. So those two principles are kind of the guiding lights.
Man, those are beautiful for everyone. And no matter what leadership role you're in or any position in life, to be a servant, the tail of the towel, and to be connected to the vine.